Before I go to the Java 9 one, a few quick announcements. I work for Goldman Sachs. We are hiring. We are based out of, our headquarters is in New York, New Jersey, but we have an office in Salt Lake City, which is like an hour and a half flight away. So if you go to gs.com/careers, you will get more information, or I'm also happy to talk more. We are hiring across, we also have an office in Dallas, and we are hiring across literally all offices, including my team. So feel free to reach out to me afterwards. My email is this, so you can also send me your resumes. I can help out. Okay. Now that is done. Sorry.
How cold is it in Salt Lake City?
Right now it's not that cold. I mean, it's okay. The interesting thing about Salt Lake City is you get so used to the cold weather out there. It's like, unless it's below 32, it's like flip flops, and it's beach weather for us. And the moment it hits 32, like your coats start to like come out of your closet. So to say, like 30ish, you actually wear them. So, but anyways, jokes apart, though, that's my contact details. Separately, outside the GS sort of realm, this is the Eclipse Collections web website. Is that visible? Eclipse.org/collections. And if you want to look at GitHub repo, it's Eclipse, github.com/eclipse/eclipse-collections. I would appreciate it if you show support by starring my repository. It's a completely shameless self-promotion, I understand, but as a project lead, you have to be shameless sometimes, and this is one of those. Lastly, this is my Twitter handle. Nikhil Nanivadekar. It's my first and part of my last name because Twitter didn't allow the whole name. I'm not kidding. That's the reason why. And feel free to follow me. I end up tweeting about Eclipse Collections. I do blog about Eclipse Collections as well as JDK Collections. And one of my friends is trying to convince me to start programming in JavaScript. So that would be interesting. I was talking to him like before. My background is as a mechanical engineer. Still the brain is tuned as a mechanical engineer. So I love to build robots. I like to run robotics workshops. So I end up tweeting photos as well as pushing out my workshops out there. In July I'll be going to Crete to run the Java JCrete for kids out there, and it'll be fun. All right, so with that, now Java 9. Now Java 9 has been out for 6 months. Today Java 10 is out. It will be out for another 6 months, before which we get Java 11. However, to go to Java 10, you need to know how to get to Java 9. So we are going to see how to get to Java 9 right now. And I'm going to assume you have a working Java 8 app. Okay, if you have like a below Java 8 app, then probably your first step is to move to Java 8. And then this talk becomes, useful. There are many more other talks about Java 9 itself. Like one of them is by Trisha G. I think it's available on YouTube. It's a pretty good talk which is there. There's one more available by Venkat Subramaniam. It's also pretty amazing. Then Simon Ritter for the 55 features of Java 9. And all of these are like really good speakers. All of them are better speakers than I am. And but this is my take on what I faced while upgrading Eclipse Collections from Java 8 to be Java 9 compatible and certifying before Java 9 was out. Okay, so the very first thing, how many of you know that reflection is a warning now starting Java 9? Okay, not many of you. So let me show you what that means. I'm going to be using a few things about Eclipse Collections so that I can show you what exactly is going on. Let's first start out by printing the Java version which is there. And Eclipse Collections has something called as an interval, so to say. So if I have an interval from 0 to 5, I'll essentially end up getting an interval of like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and if I end up creating that as an integer, and then I'm going to get this integer and add it to an array list, a normal JDK array list. Okay, so let me the font is visible, right? Or you want me to zoom in? Okay, Cool. So let's say I have a list of integers out here, okay, and integers 1, and I say new array list, okay, and let's say integers dot for integers dot each and integers 1 add. Okay, so fairly straightforward. I'm just adding the what do you say? I'm just adding those integers into my integers 1 list. So if I were to s out the integers 1 now, I'll essentially end up getting uh, so I'm running with Java 8 and it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now let's say I end up I end up iterating over each of these integers list. Okay, so here's the interesting thing. JDK does give you starting with Java 9, you can just do for each here. Okay, but in order to get you that select, collect, reject, like that rich API which is there, you don't get it unless until you do a dot stream. Now let's say you don't care about that whole laziness of stream and you don't want to have that pipeline. How many of you have tried to debug streams? Okay, you have not even tried. Good. Yeah, it's very difficult. So uh, if and I mean, jokes apart, like with IntelliJ and Eclipse now having like both the IDEs having better support for streams, it has become easier to debug streams. However, it is not that straightforward because of the whole pipeline that it creates. So let's say you still want that rich API which is there. Eclipse Collections, I'm just going to convert this to an array list for compilation sake. Eclipse Collections does provide you adapters. Okay, so we have an array list adapter. Also, we have a list adapter, but here we are going to end up looking at an array list adapter. And I'm going to pass in the array list, which we just created. Okay, now when I end up doing an array list adapter.adapt, I get the whole rich API from Eclipse Collections out here. Okay, let me. Okay, I end up getting the whole rich API from Eclipse Collections out there. Now let's, for sake of comparison, we'll end up just doing a for each with index, for each with index, where basically you get that element and the index associated with it. So it's going to be each comma index, and all you're going to do is do a sysout of each plus index, right? So fairly straightforward, like not much of a big code. Now, if I run this in JDK 8, it runs totally fine, and it ends up printing 0 to 4, right? Now, if I were to pick up this exact same code and move to my Java 9 branch or Java 9 module, which is there, so array list reflection of Java 9, let's see how it works. So here, firstly, you will see that when it starts working, I'm running on Java 9, okay, so that I'm not cheating you guys. I'm running on Java 9. It is working fine. However, you see there are 4 warnings out there, okay? And if I were to go down and show you what exactly those four warnings were there, it's illegal reflective access operation, okay? So starting with Java 9, you are going to get warnings whenever you're trying to use reflection. Okay. Now in Eclipse Collections, for the array list adapter, we were using the commando pattern. What the commando pattern means is, if you know, like it's actually a pattern in programming where you end up going in, you do your stuff and you get out. Okay. So essentially we had, like when we benchmarked array list, we figured that like there was a tipping point before which if you ended up accessing the field array which is there, right, the array which is backing the whole array list directly using the commando pattern, it was much more efficient. So we were using reflection to get to that internal array which is there, and that's why you're seeing that illegal reflective access. Okay. However, in last May, when the JCP executive committee met, they said that no, like before May, it was going to be denial of any reflective access. So most of our apps would have started failing who were using reflection. Okay. In May, the JCP executive committee met and they essentially said that, hey, this is going to cause all havoc. So we want to have it to actually throw warnings, okay, whenever it encounters reflection. Show of hands, how many of us look at warnings in our logs? Like literally no one. Okay, fine, one person. Okay, don't ignore those warnings, because the warning shows up for the first instance of reflection in Java 9. And if I were to go a step further to show you, essentially I can end up passing in a VM argument which says illegal access equal to deny, and this will start failing, okay, because it says it is using reflection, all right, and that's what was the default behavior which was expected before. So as a part of Eclipse Collection 9.0, we did remove that reflection, so to say, but in the interest of time I'm not going to show that. If you can go see, like, there was a whole effort done to make it Java 9 compatible, but by default in your applications you are going to have illegal access equal to permit, sorry, illegal access equal to warn. Yep. And if I were to play this, you will get those warnings which were visible before. Okay, this is the default behavior. Do not ignore those warnings. Once you see those warnings, please try to go fix your reflective code which is there. Okay, the bad part about those warnings are you only get the warnings for the first instance of reflection. So if your code has more than one places in which it is using reflection, you're only going to get the first one. Once you fix that, you'll get like the second one, the third one. So don't try to start on it on a Friday night like I did. So that was a bad idea. Trust me, my girlfriend was really upset about it. All right. Any questions about it? Sorry, yeah.
So, look at this, what are necessary for some of the libraries.
Yes, it is. And that was partly the reason why the JCP executive committee said that it is going to create havoc and it's going to end up breaking a lot of applications. And it's so that's why they said that so okay, previously before May, the default was deny. You could pass in the VM argument saying that warn or allow, okay, like I did right now. But post May, they flipped that and said that by default, it's going to be warning, okay. If you want to deny, you can deny it by passing in that VM argument. So yes, you are totally right. It is going to break a lot of applications. And that is the responsibility of those, like, application owners, those external library owners. Like, it was my responsibility to remove reflection out of Eclipse Collection. And we did that. Like, there are actually Java 9 regression builds which run, which ensure that. Okay. Any other questions? So yeah, like you will have, so there is actually a hashtag which says works fine with JDK 9 or works fine with Java 9, I think so. So that's all started where, like, all of these external libraries, they had to start supporting Java 9, which was a big deal. And then that's how it started, works fine with Java 9. And each, like, you have to go and register that, yeah, you are working fine with Java 9. Any other questions? Okay, moving on. Now, this was a very interesting example of hierarchy. Again, I found this while actually writing Eclipse. It wasn't me who found this. It was Evgeny. He is one of the maintainers of Jacoco. Have you guys heard of Jacoco? Most of you have. Okay, so he is one of the maintainers of Jacoco, and he ended up helping us with this Java 9 uplift which was there, and he found it, where essentially, and you will see this is still the JDK 8 branch. So if I were to print my Java version and run it, you will see that I'm still running on Java 9. Okay, it's JDK 9. However, you can see that the IDE is giving you squiggly lines out here. Okay, and I'll explain what those squiggly lines are. IntelliJ as well as Eclipse starting their newest version. So I think IntelliJ was 2017, Eclipse was I think Oxygen, that they started showing these squiggly lines for this compiler error. This was an issue. This was a bug in the Java compiler. And here was the bug. Let's say you have a base interface, okay? It's a typeless interface, okay? And let's say you have a method which says just transform, and it takes in a transformer, another interface which is there. This is a wildcard where you're saying you're basically expanding the scopes. It's essentially of type V, okay? And your interface is of type T. It has another method called as interface2. Fairly straightforward. It's basically just chaining of methods. Okay. Now, let's say you have line of code which takes your base interface, which is your delegate out here. Okay. So let's say you take your base interface, you're going to transform it to interface 1 using this transformer function, and then you're going to transform from that interface 1 to interface 2. Okay. This is fairly straightforward chaining, like 1 to 2, 2 to 3, base to 1, 1 to 2. Okay. Now, since Java 7, with the whole diamond operators which were there, this JDK, I don't know if this bug was starting Java 7, but this is a pretty old bug where the problem is if you hover on it, I apologize for the small font in the pop-up, it essentially says that it's incompatible return types. What it is saying is your function is going to return question mark extends v, but you expect a v. Okay. Does that make sense? It's just playing with generics. Now, the compiler says, hey, I can't understand what's going on. Till Java 7, till Java 8, there was no issue at all. IntelliJ is complaining, however, my code works. Now, if I were to pick this exact same exact same code, and move to my Java 9 branch and run it, it doesn't even compile because it gives that exact same exception where it says that incompatible types. Okay. Now the fix for that, you'll say, okay, fine. Have you guys understood what the problem was? Essentially, the compiler does not know what type you're returning. Okay, as simple as that. Now there are a few ways in which you can fix this. One way is you can simply end up extracting this into a variable. Okay, and here you can give this a type. That fixes it. Okay. The other one is you can cast it. So you can end up uh, casting it to an interface too. Okay. But many people don't like casting. Okay. At the end of the day, it's question mark extends v. It's not like, it is going to, it's just the compiler doesn't know what their v is. Okay. So you can cast it. And the one which we went with was just extracting it to a variable because it was much more cleaner than casting it. Okay. Now when this is fixed and I run it, the code runs. Okay. Any questions about this hierarchy example of 1? Okay. No. All right. Moving on to hierarchy example 2. I'm going to go through this quickly so that I can show you the power of modular system. Okay, let's look at hierarchy example 2. You just have a simple method called as transform. Okay, it takes in a function which is transforming. You input a t and you end up returning a b. Okay, fairly straightforward. This is same as your JDK function which is there. Okay, now let's say your transformer which is there. However, it is like a wrapper class which you have, which ends up exposing some method which is there. Now the problem here is, like, how many of you know this diamond operator? This has been there since Java 7, right? Now with this, because of this diamond operator, the compiler does not understand what are T's and V's. What is the type of this transformer? Because here the transformer is actually a typed class, okay? That class is a type, T extends comparable T, comma V, okay? So here, the compiler says that I've got no idea what's going on. And it ends up giving a very cryptic error called as function question mark super T question mark extend V cannot be applied to function capture of question mark super T, okay? And that like makes you go, okay, this doesn't make sense. Like I wrote this code, this one works, right? I know this works, right? Essentially the problem is, and if I run it on my JDK 8.1, even though my, so let me print the Java version. How many of you use IntelliJ? Okay, most of you. You know you can, like, those are all live templates, by the way. So you can set it up where I can just go say print and I can just tab it out. This is all set up, like since I present it quite often, I need to make sure I'm not wasting time in typing the same thing. Also, like you can end up creating an array list. So array list integer, it will end up creating everything for you. But it's pretty cool. Those are live templates. Anyways, moving on. So if I were to pick this whole one, this one ran fine in Java 8, but with Java 9, uh, this will not compile. Okay, and I can, even before running, I can show you that this one does not compile because it again says the exact same error which IntelliJ was prompted. So even in your JDK 8 application code which is there, you might get those squiggly lines. Don't ignore them, because when you are going to upgrade it to JDK 9, you will have to fix them eventually. So you might as well start fixing. Now the fix for that is the diamond operator does not work on this case, because the compiler says, I don't know how to infer, like I don't know what you're giving me and I don't know what you're getting back, because you have expanded the scope with like question mark extend and question mark super. Okay, so essentially what you have to do is you just have to give it types. That's the only one way to fix it. You're telling the compiler, all right, this is a function, you're inputting t, you're going to get back a b. Okay, deal with it. Like it's literally like that. If I run it, it's going to run fine. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, now the last section of this is for combiner. So uh, let's say you have a string hello with numbers. Okay, and in the string you're going to get the chars, you want to filter it by the letter and you want to collect it. Okay, and you're going to print it out. Now if I run it in JDK 8, it ends up printing out hello because that's what you're trying to do. But now the interesting part is, if I were to take this exact same code in Java 9, you end up getting a very cryptic error. Sorry, a very cryptic exception, not an error. This one compiles and it says null pointer exception. And you're like thinking out there, this same thing worked in Java 8. Like I've got no idea like what's going on. This took me quite a while to figure out what had happened. Okay, because I only have one null out here, where it is the combiner, right? And this combiner is useful only in parallel streams, not in serial streams, because in serial there's nothing for you to combine. So you get away with null. So I'm like, there's no point in us, throwing a null pointer because of that null. So I said, okay, fine, I'm gonna go dig inside. Now, like I asked before, sorry, combiner, not null. So like I said before, it's very difficult to debug streams, right? So, but I tried to do it. Now let's first debug the Java 8 code which is there, all right? Now, if I were to go deep in, so now with the new IntelliJ support, you can actually understand what exactly is going on out here. Now, all of this ends up going into some class called as in-pipeline, okay? And if I were to look at in-pipeline.collect, this is going to be called, okay? So, oh, did I execute it? So it ends up getting called. So this is how the in pipeline looks, right? No null checks, life is good, everyone is happy. All right. Now, if we were to look at the same int pipeline, which was there for Java 9, it has this one line which ends up throwing that null pointer. Because according to the rules, and if you end up getting the book by Maurice Naphthalian, it's on collectors. It's a pretty good book where he has actually laid down all the rules which your collectors should follow and your streams code should follow. One of the rules is you cannot have a null combiner. And starting with Java 9, they actually added that objects.require not null, right? So in order to fix our code here, since I know it's pretty much useless out here, so I can just do string builder append and then run it. It's not going to be used since it's a parallel stream. Okay, there you go. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, I run the JDK 8 class, so let me run the JDK 9.1 after adding the combiner the string builder append. So it works fine. No more null pointers. Okay, you guys with me? Awesome. Now we're going to move to modules, and I'm going to go very fast in the modules one. So slow me down if I go too fast, because there's just so much to cover, and I'll be fixing compiler errors as we go. And you will see, like, all I'm doing is pressing Alt Enter, nothing else. Like IntelliJ is helping me for the most part of it. If you use Eclipse, Eclipse also helps. So it's just that I'm an IntelliJ user. So even though my library is called Eclipse Collections, but it's always funny when, like, I go to a conference and I'm demoing Eclipse Collections on my IntelliJ, and they're like, why are you using IntelliJ? I'm like, it's an ID agnostic library. You can use anything. And one person actually challenged me. They were like, fine, why don't you show us by using Eclipse? I'm like, all right, let's start it up. And like we did that. And like it was just it's always like it's a weird, like, argument which people have, IntelliJ versus Eclipse. It's like, whatever you feel comfortable with. But fine. All right. So this is a fairly recent project, like, and if I think Paul saw this while we were at Java 1, where I'm a robotics engineer. So like I was telling, I can turn, like, literally, I can see those robots move, and like, I can get them working even in my sleep. Like that's where, like, my heart is. So every time I end up going to a conference like Java 1, Goldman Sachs has a booth, and I end up setting up robot demos. And that's part of, like, a cool thing about my job, because then that's like my side project, and the firm supports me. I'm like, okay, fine, you want to do robot demos out there, it's all right. Like, you can do those things, etc., etc. It's a cool place to work. That was it. So we uh, one of the tech fellows in Goldman, he and I, we came up with this idea where we are going to say that, how many of you have heard of Dijkstra's algorithm? Most of us. So essentially, a Dijkstra's algorithm is where you want to go between point A and one point to the other point, and the traversal has to be the least cost path. Okay, and we're like, okay, fine. We want to use Dijkstra's algorithm on a small Lego Mindstorm. Fairly straightforward, right? No, it's not. Because the whole JVM, the whole Lego Mindstorm which is there, it's a very small processor. Okay, so then we said, okay, this is not cool enough, because then the only way you can go about doing this is if you have a static map. We wanted to give users the control to say, you guys draw the map and we will solve it for you. So we ended up building up this project where we would give you these grid lines, and you could draw a maze, so to say, take a photo, tweet it. The robot would download it from Twitter. It was a Raspberry Pi server which was connected to a Lego Mindstorm. It will download it from Twitter, it will solve it, and the robot would move on the ground. Okay, all that was happening within like a matter of 5 seconds or something like that. Like, and this is like, someone pushing the tweet out, the tweet coming, solving, etc., etc. So this was built out like in September. And then having to use the modular system, even in such a new project which is there, started to become difficult. And I'm going to show you how and why it was difficult. First things first, let me show you that this is Java 8 for now. So I'm going to end up upgrading my Java 8 application to Java 9 application. And this is maze solving. It ends up parsing a maze and actually ends up building a pretty cool, like a Terminator view, sort of like, uh, parsed maze which is there. Like, you guys remember Terminator 2? Like, you have all of those numbers and everything. So yeah. Anyways, getting back to the point. So essentially, this is working fine on Java 8. Okay. Now you'll say, hey, Nikhil, I want to upgrade to Java 9. I know that there are no reflections out here. I'm using the latest Eclipse Collections library, so no issues with that, etc., etc. So all I have to do is I have to go here in my, since it's a maven build, I just have to upgrade the source and the target to be 9. And since we are using IntelliJ, we have to make sure that we are pointing at the correct JDK. So here you go. Apply. Let's clean and build. This will take like about 20 seconds or something. After I'm done doing a clean and build, now I can run this. By the way, one more interesting thing is you see before Java 9, the source and target was 1.8, 1.7, 1.6. Starting with 9, it's 9.10. Okay. But now if I were to run this, you remember I was printing the Java version which is there. Now it should, if I've done my job correctly, it should just print Java 9. Okay, hopefully, yeah. So Java version 9. All right, that's it. I upgraded my app from Java 8 to Java 9. Right, all of us can go home. No, I mean you can, but I would like to show you the the modules aspect of it, because that was like pretty much the show stealer. Like I showed you all the things that you have to fix before moving to Java 9. But now that you have moved to Java 9, now you can actually start using the power of Java 9. And the first one is to actually start breaking down your entire project into smaller chunks. Okay, and those smaller chunks are modules. So let's say like I have this core module which is there. Okay, and let's say for now I want to like just create a class, and I'm going to call it awesome SD jug. Okay, and I'm just going to say SR having an awesome time at San Diego. Okay, good enough. Let's run this. This should run fine with Java 9, right? It ran fine. Life is good, right? Now let's start adding modules. So the way you end up adding modules in Java 9 is you end up creating a module-info file. Okay, so if I end up creating a new module-info file out here, let's say it's module core, and I were to run this class which I created right now, it ends up failing with like multiple errors. The very first error which is there, which we'll fix in a second, but I'm going to go back here and it's going to say that, hey, I've got no idea what's going on. So let me go on fixing these, requires errors which are there. So here, if you see, I ended up adding requires collections.api. It's Eclipse Collections. That's the name of the module. It is required, okay? Because I'm using that. Now the next one is this impl which is there. And going down here, it's this Java IO which is there. I'm just going to add them, okay? Now let's run this SD jug which is there. So it ran, but it failed. Can you see the error? It says the error occurred during initialization of boot layer, okay? And essentially the problem is here, unnamed package not allowed in module. If you have any unnamed classes, and this ends up happening especially for our Spring Boot or our like batch applications, where you will have a main class which is outside a package. It's inside an unnamed package. It's outside like Java, it's directly inside Java. You won't be able to do that anymore. The only file that is allowed in an unnamed package is module-info.java. Okay, with me so far? So I'm just going to delete this now because that's what I wanted to show you. And then if I were to run my previous class again, now it will run fine. Okay. Now here's an interesting thing. You would think, okay, fine, because Nikhil was running the awesome sdjug.java, this is why it happened. Fine. Let me actually create another class. I'll just call it test main and just keep it there like esvm do nothing. Okay. And if I were to run the same class again, the other one parsing main, it runs fine. Okay. So that's important. You guys see what I'm saying? Unless until you don't run that, it is not getting invoked. Okay. So it runs fine. All right. Did you follow the difference? I was trying to run the main class, and that main class which is there, or like any of its dependents, they are not allowed to be in an unnamed package. But since I was running the other main class, which did not have any association with the new test main, it ran fine. Okay, that's pretty much. All right. So now what I've done is I've successfully converted my first module into a modular system, which is my core module. Okay, module-info.java. Okay, that's it. I've not even started using the cool features of modular system. I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to change this maze parser, which is there, into a modular system as well. So let's add another module dash info dot Java. And now this test main which is there, so previously this was not modularized, but it worked fine. Now that I've added that module dash info dot Java class, it started having those issues where, similar to before, I need to add the requires. All right, so let me add that. And now here is where it's very cryptic. It says robotics.enums.pointType, right? Now, and it says add maven dependency. Oh, but how so weird. If I were to go in my POM, I see that that dependency is already there. That enum class is coming from core. Now, the reason why this is happening is because my core module is actually not exporting anything, right? Because this is where public is not public, the whole concept comes, because my point type is actually a public enum, but my core is not actually exporting that package. So any of its dependents is not able to use it. And this causes issues with external libraries, because if, let's say, one library has a Java 9 module, which is dependent on another library, which is not exporting something, your applications will start like breaking without you even knowing before you compiling it. Okay. And I answered a Stack Overflow post a while ago. And if you take a look at it, where one user was trying to actually figure out what was happening, like he had added the module system, but it was failing to come at runtime. And the reason, no, it was failing at compile time, sorry. And the reason why it was failing was because he needed to add more requires from a different drop wizard library. And these errors start getting like a bit difficult to comprehend as to where what is going and everything. IntelliJ helps you, Eclipse helps you. Last but not the least, brute force does help you, where you just start trying stuff. Okay, so going back to this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start exporting all my packages out here. Now you will say, but Nikhil, if you were to export just robotics.maze, why don't you export everything out there? Because packages are nothing but a file system for Java. Essentially, here, even though all of these packages are under robotics.maze, you have to explicitly export each and every package. And this becomes much more interesting. I'm just going to start exporting all of these. So export robotics.maze.enums. Then exceptions and rejection and utils. Okay, now let's see what happens here. Does it still run? It should not, because now here is where it actually gives a good error where it says package enums is declared in module core, but maze parser does not read it. Okay, now essentially your one module is exporting your classes, your packages which you require, but your other module is not using it. So similar to that requires which we added for Eclipse Collections, you have to add requires for even your own modules which are there. Okay, so let's add requires out here. Okay, there's one more, AWT. Oh, sorry. All right, so now if you see here, let me quickly fix AWT. Okay. Now it's going to fail for one more thing. Okay, and this is the most common, this issue that people will face. And I know that because that's the most common issue which I faced. And here you see that Java package exists in another module. So if I hover around it, it says package robotics maze projection exists in another module core. Okay, Java 8 when Java 8 came out, the way you wrote code changed. Okay, it revolutionized in the whole Java ecosystem. You could start using lambdas, you could start writing functional programs and everything. Starting with Java 9, you're going to change the way in which you're building your code. Okay, so this is very important. Now this is something called as a split package. Essentially, like I said before, Java considers your packages to be nothing but a file system. Okay, starting with Java 9, your package can only exist in one and only one module. So now here, if you have robotics maze.projection, since it's already here in core and it is exported, you cannot have robotics maze projection, the same class out here. Okay, it will not allow you. What this lets you do is it starts helping you to clean up your code. Now, some people come up, like one of my teammates actually came up with this like amazing idea where he said, okay, we'll just start calling it, instead of projection, we'll call it maze parcel projection. A valid point, okay? But the reason why the split packaging was firstly, discouraged, or the reason why it's throwing these exceptions is because they're trying to help you to sanitize your code, to like restructure your code. And trust me, the restructuring helps, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here, and in this maze parser projection, I'm going to realize that these two classes, they're actually used by only the maze parser module. So they're completely useless out there. They're in core, but they're completely useless. They're unnecessarily in that module. Okay. So I'm just going to pick these two up, and I'm going to say, let's move you guys to projection. Okay. And once I move them, here, the interesting thing happens is the module.info starts complaining for core. It says projection is an empty package. You can't have that. You can't export that. So let's go and delete the whole package. What this is allowing me to do is sanitize my structure of my code. Okay. Now let's go and see if this plays or not. All right, it played. It worked fine. Okay. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go and change the third, because it's already 9:04. So I'm not going to go and change the third module, which is there, into a modular system. The one, because it's going to be similar. The one thing which I generally show in the last module is what it means by public is not public. So let's say, for example, in Dijkstra, I end up creating a package called as internal. Okay. And I end up creating a class called as Nikhil test. Okay. Okay, it's a public class. It's a dependency. Now I go inside this parsing and drawing main. Okay. And I say new Nikhil test. Okay. That's it, right? This should work, correct? Okay. Now here's the interesting thing. This is one of the bugs which you find, because here in this internal class which is there, where did that go? In this internal which is there, this Nikhil test which is there, my core, the whole jar is not built as yet. Okay. Now, if I were to run a maven clean build, it will throw exceptions, and I will end up reporting uh, this as a bug to IntelliJ, because this is an error. And essentially the problem over here is this is a public class Nikhil test. However, in my module.info, I'm not exporting robotics maze Dijkstra.internal. Okay. And normally what ends up happening is when I end up creating this, it should start showing squiggly lines out here. Okay. But it's not. Okay, now it did, because I ended up running the build which is there. So essentially they have to make sure that they recompile, and I'll report this bug tonight, and they generally triage it and fix it. I ended up reporting another bug on module.info. So previously, before 2017.2, if you ended up adding a new module-info.java file, it did not recompile the whole project. You had to force what I did with Maven right now. Okay. Now if I were to go here and essentially uh, so I have two options here. I can do Dijkstra.internal, and then this should start running, hopefully. Oh, this, right? I don't know why this one is messed up right now, but essentially uh, the whole concept that I was trying to show here is if you have another package called as internal, and if you don't export it in your module-info.java file, it won't be visible to your other module. Which is there. Okay, but that was the last of it. I don't know why this is not working. I'll research on it. Most probably because the whole compilation didn't happen when I added the internal package which is there, and that's a bug. I'll report that as well, so that hopefully it's fixed in the next version. Great. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Please follow me on Twitter. Please star my repo more than following me on Twitter. Like show some like no as a project lead, it actually helps to see the appreciation, and especially I love it when people raise bugs or ask for feature requests. Like we might not be able to get to those feature requests immediately, but if it's a serious enough bug, we end up fixing it immediately, and we end up backporting. Like one user raised a bug last Friday, and I have to go back and backport it up to GS collection. So like for the past 6 years, I have to backport it for each release. So it's fun stuff, and we try to be as responsible as possible. All right, thank you very much, everybody, for giving me the opportunity. And you were a great